It's 2018, and 3 NASCAR drivers, all on the peak of their careers, have taken center stage for an entire season, with their pure speed and dominance over the other 37 competitors on the track. Leading 43% of the laps completed across the season, while also taking over half the wins throughout the year, they were the talk of NASCAR. Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr., and Kyle Busch all had won championships in the previous 4 years of NASCAR's new knockout-style playoff format, and when it once again came time for the one-race finale to crown a champion in 2018, they all found themselves with the chance to win the championship. However, before we get into the big three, in 2018, let me introduce you to the sponsor of this video. Coofandy is a top-of-the-line men's clothing brand, with options in any type of men's clothing you could be in the market for, no matter the age, weather, or occasion, and they were also kind enough to send me not just a v-neck for the upcoming winter months, which has been getting a lot of use out of me lately, as it's been 30 degrees outside all week where I live, unfortunately. Don't know why it switched from 70 to 30. But they also went out of their way to let me have some stylish looking pants to go along with it. Coofandy is the primary sponsor of Joe Gibbs racing driver Christopher Bell this weekend during the Round of 8 elimination race at Martinsville, and the paint scheme for it is absolutely gorgeous as he tries to race his way into the Final Four. Coofandy themselves features hoodies, dress pants, normal pants, polos, t-shirts, and much more you could be in the market for. And if you'd like to purchase some of their clothing items, head to coofandy.com. And again, thank you for sponsoring this video. Let's start this off with the first race of the 2018 season, the Daytona 500. And unsurprisingly, each of the big three would be caught up in an accident in the race, as so often happens in superspeedway racing. Kyle Busch bit the bullet first when he blew a tire late in stage 1, while riding around in the back to avoid a crash, destroying his rear bumper and leaving him multiple laps down. Kevin Harvick was the next to go in stage 2, being involved in a turn 3 pileup at the front of the field, which left him unable to continue in the race, while the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. was able to barely sneak through the crash unscathed. But once the field wrecked again with 2 laps to go, he'd have no such luck this time around, having nowhere to go with the spinning cars blocking his path on the track. On to Atlanta.
Yeah, Harvick's not even driving. He lifts. As soon as he passes the quarter mile track, he lifts. It's ridiculous. He's just playing with traffic.
Harvick is lifting when it's stalled past turn 1 of the quarter mile.
Yeah, and let's watch this telemetry of what Kevin Harvick does so well. So there's green. He's full throttle down the straightaway. Look how, oh man, he is at the quarter mile.
You seem shocked by that.
Kevin Harvick dominated the race all day and into the evening, leading 181 of the 325 laps, running the white line better than anyone could ever dream of. Flawlessly painting his tires on it corner after corner throughout the event, it was the start of a dominant stretch for the Stewart-Haas Racing driver, continuing with a beatdown on the field in Las Vegas during race 3, leading 80% of the laps and sweeping the stages, letting him leave the race with 60 points earned, the maximum possible for a cup race. One issue though for the 4 team. It seems they manufactured a way for a windshield brace to give way at high speed to Las Vegas, directing more airflow to the spoiler and helping the car generate more downforce. Thank you, Reddit. NASCAR wasn't too fond of this discovery out of the 4 camp, meaning no playoff points earned for the Las Vegas win, along with a hefty fine and a 20-point penalty. So in response, he won a week later.
Just 3 weeks of dominance. Car down in the corner, nice and smooth. Look at it, not even fighting the wheel, just kind of on cruise control, bringing her to the house.
He hadn't led a lap here in the last 3 races. Boy, he changed that today.
Off turn 4, Happy Harvick gets his 40th career win.
This win wasn't as dominant as the others had been for Harvick, taking the lead late on the last cycle of green flag pit stops by short pitting the dominant car of the day, Kyle Busch, who was forced to deal with his second runner-up to the 4 car in as many weeks. But his time in the spotlight would end up coming very soon. Not the next week after at Auto Club though, as it was previous champion Martin Truex Jr.'s time to shine in the Furniture Row Racing Toyota, sweeping both stages, leading the most laps, and putting an 11-second gap over second place when he crossed the line for his first win of 2018. Busch earned his 3rd straight podium that day, while Harvick, in pursuit of his 4th straight win, found himself 9 laps down in 35th, taking himself out of contention from the race early in stage 1 by hitting the side of Kyle Larson and spinning back into the wall, swiftly ending his chances at 4 in a row. None of the big three wound up at victory lane the next week at Martinsville, as Clint Bowyer snapped a winless streak dating back to 2012, with Kyle Busch once again looming in second. Being the only one of the big three yet to win a race, despite showing speed in all the races he run, a near repeat to last year, where it took till the 21st race of the year for him to win, despite having the best car time after time. But that wasn't gonna happen this year.
4 straight finishes of second or third, everything but a W. Today, Kyle Busch wins in Texas for Joe Gibbs and Toyota.
He says, I'm here, and I'm coming. Open the door, let me in.
Oh, there's gonna be contact. Yeah, sends it right up the track. Gets loose. Takes
Larson got big time loose.
Kyle Busch wins Bristol. For Kyle Larson, there is the bow.
I can't believe we're going to talk about Kyle Busch going for 3 in a row. I didn't see this happening when this race started.
They'll never make it off.
Repeat from 32nd. Kyle Busch wins Richmond. Everybody makes it across the line. Kyle Busch taking home the checkered flag for the 3rd week in a row is today's Sunoco fueling victory.
Martin Truex Jr. over these 3 races experienced the complete opposite of Busch, however, wrecking out hard at Texas after blowing a tire midway through the race, followed by a lap 4 crash at Bristol, which ended any hopes he had at competing. The abysmal stretch would continue on into Richmond, when the light at the end of the tunnel would vanish quickly at the end of the race after losing the lead late on pit road to Busch before his pit crew melted down on the final stop, losing 9 positions on pit road and leaving him in 14th place at the finish. For race 10, the series went to Talladega for Kyle Busch's chance at earning 4 wins in a row, and for Martin Truex Jr. to try and turn his season's skid around, neither of which would end up happening. Kevin Harvick escaped with a top 5 finish in 4th, and carried this momentum over to his 4th win of the season the next week in Dover, sweeping both stages, this time being able to keep all 60 points and the 7 playoff points that came with this feat. At the 1/3 mark of the season, the Big Three had already won over 70% of the races, and at Kansas the sport once again saw Harvick dominate a race before giving up the lead with under 20 to go to pit for tires, restarting him in 8th place with 16 laps left. Harvick barely escaped disaster on the restart in turns 3 and 4, and once the race restarted again, he'd soon go up against Truex Jr. for the first battle amongst 2 of the Big Three for a win this season.
Then letting them get to his outside.
Truex went to the top to stop Harvick's advance.
And there's Harvick.
He's there.
Yeah, he just got so much more grip, the 4 does.
Never been a last lap pass here. There it is with 1 to go. Sponsored by Credit One Bank. Missed it by that much. Kevin Harvick wins in Kansas.
The Kansas one would be Harvick's 5th win in the first 12 races of 2018, yet after this, it'd be a while until he'd win again, at least in this season's terms. Unless you count the $1 million Harvick won the next weekend at Charlotte during the All-Star race, or even driving in a radically different aero package as to what was being run in 2018, with reduced horsepower and
giant-ass spoilers.
The 4-car flexed their muscles. Kyle Busch responded to Harvick's back-to-back wins the next week at the 600 by running one of the most dominant races in NASCAR history, leading 377 of the 400 laps in the Coca-Cola 600, winning all 4 stages and only being passed under green flag conditions 1 time throughout the entire night, coming on the first lap to start the race. Next week at the Tricky Triangle, Martin Truex Jr. collected his long overdue 2nd win of the season, a race which saw Harvick dominate the first 3/4 of it, yet falter late when execution mattered the most on the restarts, while the 78 thrived, bringing the Big Three's win total over the first 14 races to 11 against the competition, winning every race but 1 on non-super speedways as the calendar flipped into June. Harvick was close to adding on to this at Michigan the very next week, nearly passing his teammate Clint Bowyer for the win just before rain started falling on the speedway under caution, shortly after a Ricky Stenhouse spin. NASCAR was forced to call the race early on lap 133, putting Clint Bowyer back in victory lane for the 2nd time this season, the first driver outside of the Big Three to have multiple wins. Next week it is for them. Martin Truex Jr. won by 15 seconds over Kevin Harvick while leading over half the race, to nobody's surprise. So on to Chicago. Kyle Larson, in pursuit of Kyle Busch for the win, just knocked down the wall coming to 7 to go, gifting Busch a 1-second lead, all he'd need to cruise to an easy victory. Unless the 15th, 16th, and 17th place cars all decide to race him like they were involved for the win to try to stay on the lead lap. Which is exactly what happened, giving Larson the chance to trim down the lead lap after lap to just 3/10 as they came off of turn 4 to the white flag, and after running the wall, he now has momentum over Busch. Let's see how this plays out.
2, Kyle Busch, and here comes Larson. Larson to the bottom of the track.
Slide job.
Trying to take the lead away.
Slide job. Almost.
The momentum. The 18.
Contact.
They make contact. The 18 into the wall. They're side by side again. Going into 3 for the lead. Larson has the advantage. Here comes the 18. He puts the bumper to the back of him. The 18 into the wall. The 42 sideways.
Where's Harvick?
Here comes the 18. Kyle Busch will win.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Another super speedway, another chance to see a new winner, another chance to get caught up in a crash.
Huge push. And around goes a 2. Too big of a push. He caught the 41.
The big one.
Logano's caught up in it. Oh my God. Denny Hamlin.
Kyle Busch would be the first out in this event in stage 2, being wrecked while racing for the lead by Ricky Stenhouse, who in the span of 20 minutes managed to create millions of dollars in damages on 2 separate occasions. The first one giving minimal damage to both the 4 and the 78. However, just for fun, later in the race the 78 by himself ran down an entire single car 20 car pack, which is something I've never seen done in a super speedway race. Unless you count when they fuel save in the next gens. I don't. So with this speed, it seemed that the Big Three's fortune had finally turned at super speedway races, as on the first overtime restart, they found themselves first and second.
Call it the 14 around. Boyer into the wall. The caution comes out just before they get to the start-finish line.
The last overtime restart put the Toyotas against each other, and after a daring through-wide move on the backstretch from Casey Kane, Jones eventually had the help needed on the white flag to best Truex and earn his first career Cup Series win, wrapping up the first half of 2018 with 5 non-Big Three winners in 18 events. So far, this is the Big Three's finishes across the first 18 races, and for good measure, I threw in 5th place in the standings Brad Keselowski for a comparison. So what do you notice at the mid-season points? The numbers so far tell a story of a trio who dominated at nearly every major track type, short tracks, intermediates, and road courses, you name it, with absolutely no sign of slowing down once the summer wore on. The start of the second half of the 2018 season sent the Cup Series to Kentucky, a track that Truex Jr. dominated and won at last year, with this year being the exact same story. Another dominant win, logging 174 laps ahead of the field out of the 267 laps and cruising to his 4th win of the season. Did you like the first battle amongst the Big Three at Kansas in the year? Good. Here's another fight for the win between them, this time swapping Truex Jr. out for Busch.
Kyle comes off the corner, looks in the mirror. He's going to peek at him this time. He's going to enter a little bit lower.
You come off the corner, look in the mirror, and see nothing but the hood of that Busch car. Look at that. Oh, he wrinkled the quarter panel. He hit him so hard.
Pushed him up.
Those are nudges. That's racing.
And finish exit down there. Do what you've been doing. Keep them rears attached.
That's aggressive, but that's good. Good hard racing. Oh, he puts him out of the groove there.
Oh, man. I don't know about hard racing. He moves
Boy,
him.
he moved him good there.
Last week, it was the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. sweeping the week, perhaps making himself the title favorite. This week, it's Kevin Harvick in the 4 car coming back and winning at New Hampshire.
Back at the tricky triangle for the second time in 8 weeks, thankfully we don't do that anymore, where Kyle Busch was cruising to his 6th win of the 2018 season, until the caution flew.
Oh, hard into the wall is the 43. Bubba Wallace slams the wall.
Now to get redemption from last week, Kyle Busch was tasked with going up against teammate Daniel Suarez for the win on a late race restart, Suarez of which was hungry in pursuit of his first career Cup Series win. The 19 got a phenomenal restart against Busch, and with help from his other teammate would have the edge entering turn 1, until Eric Jones decided he himself wanted to have a chance to win also, allowing Kyle Busch to use the momentum on the outside to clear both drivers exiting 1 and drive away into the sunset to another win on the year. But after this, something strange happened, and the Big Three would start to slip a bit and reduce their stranglehold on the garage. However, not from a lack of trying. The second road course of 2018 was finally Chase Elliott's day in the sun, entering victory lane for the first time in the Cup Series, and despite a hard charge from Truex until his fuel ran out on the white flag, the Big Three was no match for the Hendrick Motorsports entry, a team that had just won its first race of the season in the middle of August, and a manufacturer in Chevy who hadn't won a race all the way since the Daytona 500, 6 months prior. Kevin Harvick reclaimed the Big Three's title at Michigan the next weekend, commanding the race for the majority of the event for his 7th win of the year. On to the Bristol night race. A rare mistake out of Kyle Busch, especially at Bristol, gave damage to both he and Truex immediately to start their nights. However, he himself suffered the brunt of the damage after getting nailed by oncoming cars. Yet miraculously, after tearing the rear bumper cover off and doing minor repairs around the body, he still had a car capable of winning the race, coming back all the way down from 2 laps down to run deep inside the top 5, but all this speed only led to the first run-in out of the Big Three, when Busch barely clipped Truex's bumper while racing for second, sending the 78 hard into the inside wall and right back across the track into the lap car of JJ Yeley, destroying Truex's car and his chances at winning the race that night. Busch's night would also soon come to an end shortly after following a tire rub, on a late race restart which eventually led to him blowing the tire and ending up right back where he started the night off at, multiple laps down, while his brother Kurt had a much more desired ending, breaking through for his first win since the 2017 Daytona 500. Before the 2018 season could conclude, one more three-peat was in order. However, this time it wasn't a Big Three driver who would do this, seeing the Penske number 2 of Brad Keselowski win back-to-back crown jewels in the Southern 500 and Brickyard 400, followed by winning the playoff opener at Las Vegas to complete his 3rd win in a row. However, to start the playoffs, Harvick suffered a poor result at Las Vegas following a blown tire midway through the race. Yet a runner-up the next weekend at Richmond, the winner Kyle Busch put him back on track and put a Big Three driver back in victory lane for the first time in 4 races, the longest drought of the season and the first time the other competitors had won back-to-back events. The cutoff race for the first round of the playoffs took us to the first new track on the Cup Series schedule since Kentucky in 2011, being the Charlotte Roval, where after a relatively calm debut, a late crash by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. opened up Pandora's box for the ensuing restart, which featured the leader driving straight into the turn 1 wall, gifting Truex Jr. the lead out of a rare stroke of luck for the 78 car.
I guess all of us are just stupid, don't know where to brake for the corner considering what our tires look like, and so we just all drove off into a 90-degree wall for something to do because we had nothing else better to do, so that kind of sucked, but...
However, to finish the race off and win the first Roval race in NASCAR, he'd have to hold off a desperate Jimmy Johnson, who had not graced victory lane in well over a year, finally being given another opportunity to win in the Cup Series. This desperation wouldn't play out well for the leader of Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah, so 48's only 7 points to the good, so he may not get 40, but look, he's there. What a great corner.
Here they come through the final banked curve at Charlotte Roval. Now he goes to the inside. Here comes Jimmy Johnson. Locks the brakes up.
Oh, he's
and he's going to slide. He slides through the middle. Truex gets tagged. Now it'll be a fight for the finish line. Ryan Blaney in the 12 will win.
After the race.
Look at that. That was after the checkered flag had been out.
The round of 12 would not end up going as favorably for the 3 drivers compared to the first, especially at the last Super Speedway race of the year in Talladega, which saw all of them finish outside of the top 10 for the first time in 2018, with all of them ending the race outside of the top 20. However, the regular season performances easily created enough playoff points to send Harvick and Busch off into the next round despite this, while Truex sat on the hot seat for much of the elimination race at Kansas, yet still advancing through with a solid finish. Entering the round of 8, the Big Three had secured a 23, 39, and 40-point gap over the cut line, nearly guaranteeing them to be in the Final Four in a few weeks at Homestead, as long as they didn't have any major problems. This left one spot open for the other 5 drivers who were in the round of 8 to compete for, unless they can manage to beat the Big Three and win in 2 of the next 3 races, an unlikely outcome. The round of 8 kicked off at Martinsville, being dominated by Joe Gibbs Racing teammates Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch for the first quarter of the event, before Joey Logano took control after winning the race off pit road. Logano proved to have one of the best cars once he got out in the clean air, spending the next 200 laps out front until being passed by Martin Truex Jr. with 140 to go. At this point, it was evident that the 22 seemed to struggle in the long run, as Truex drove away quickly after making this pass, while others in the top 5 ran Logano down just as fast. However, a William Byron spin brought the caution out and reset everything. As now with equal tires, Logano was able to take back the lead after the green flag waved again, swapping the lead later in the run to teammate Brad Keselowski once the long run set in again, before retaking it on pit road on what was the final pit stop of the race. The 22 quickly jumped out to the lead on the last restart. However, as so often happened in this race, he soon began to struggle on the long run, experiencing massive pressure from his already eliminated teammate lap after lap, while Truex Jr. on the flip side began passing cars on the long run with ease, moving past Kyle Busch for third with 15 to go, and Keselowski for second just a few laps later, before setting his eyes on race leader Joey Logano. Truex instantly got to the 22's bumper, but the laps quickly clicked down before finally driving to the inside of Logano, doing everything he could to make his way around him without making contact, until finally entering turn 1 on the white flag, Truex cleared him. But with Logano knowing this was likely his best chance at making the final 4, he'd immediately throw all the clean racing Truex gave him out the window for a chance to win a championship.
Win his championship! The 2017 champion, will he get the bumper? Yes, he does! Here comes Logano! Logano on the inside, a drag race, they're sideways! And it's gonna be Logano getting the win!
Truex not happy.
Great job, buddy.
May won the battle, but he ain't win the damn war.
That's it?
That's it.
So he's not gonna get there. You're not gonna win the championship.
He ain't.
How do you retaliate?
I'm just not gonna let him win it. I'm gonna win it.
Kevin Harvick and the Team Penske Forge largely dominated the second round of 8 race, with Harvick going on to take home the checkered flag and lock himself into the final 4, until the 4 car got caught cheating again, this time for an issue with the spoiler, leaving NASCAR no choice but to strip them of their final 4 spot and dock them 40 points, virtually every playoff buffer he had earned throughout 2018, and now slotting Harvick just 3 points ahead of the cut line as they entered the cutoff race in Phoenix. However, to say this was the track best suited for Harvick to thrive at would be an understatement, as while winning the spring race earlier in the year at the same track, he also had 8 other Phoenix trophies to his name throughout his career, by far the most at any track for him. And after qualifying on pole and leading the entirety of stage 1, it seemed like advancing would be a walk in the park. Yet just 3 laps away from a stage win and 10 more points to his name, he'd blow a right front tire and have to limp it to pit road, putting him a lap down and in jeopardy of missing the final 4. Harvick's fortunes would soon change after he'd get a caution while in the free pass position early on in stage 2 for a Joey Logano crash for a blown tire, making the move he pulled on Truex at Martinsville all the more valuable, as without it, he'd have been eliminated right there in that crash. The race continued on, with Harvick being tasked to best his teammate Kurt Busch for the final playoff spot left for Homestead, a battle that came to a sudden end on a late race restart, after Denny Hamlin overdrove turn 2 looking for his first win of the season, stuffing Busch into the wall. The result of this was a backstretch melee, taking out both the 41 and fellow playoff competitor Chase Elliott, leaving just Eric Almirola as the only driver left with a chance to knock the 4 team out. Almirola put up a fight to advance into Homestead, driving past teammate Harvick for second late in the race on a restart, but not having enough to pass Kyle Busch, who would go on to capture his 8th win of the 2018 season. And with that, the final 4 was set, featuring the big 3 of Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and Martin Truex Jr., with Joey Logano being tasked with taking down the most dominant 3 drivers NASCAR had ever seen in a season. Kyle Busch started the highest of the final 4 drivers in second, while on the opposite side of the grid, Kevin Harvick was the lowest in 12th. Yet after just 43 laps in the race, he had already driven up and passed the pole sitter Denny Hamlin, going on to take home the stage 1 win. The second stage mixed in more leaders as compared to the first, featuring Joey Logano lead for a small portion, while Kyle Larson used his ability to run the top better than anyone in the garage to his advantage, barely winning the second stage over Harvick at the line. At this point in the race, it was evident that the best cars in the final 4 were the 4 and the 22. However, it's not like the 18 and the 78 were terrible. They just hadn't had that extra bit of speed to allow them to fully compete, and were just one adjustment away from going up there and fighting with the other 2. Logano and Harvick immediately went at it for the lead at the start of the final stage, seeing the 22 blow by the 4 and bring the 78 with them into second place, continuing the lead for a large portion of the final stage. Yet Truex and his team flexed the long run speed they had all year, taking the lead just before the final set of green flag pit stops occurred. However, instead of pitting with the rest of the frontrunners, Kyle Busch's crew elected to leave him out there in hopes of catching a caution and leapfrogging him to first, virtually the only move they had left to give him a chance at winning the championship. And just before the 18 was set to hit pit road ending his season, a miracle happened for them, with the final caution of the night flying with 20 to go. Busch from the lead won the race off pit road, with other Final Four drivers following in suit, putting them first through fourth for the final restart of the 2018 season. On the restart, Truex immediately made quick work of Busch, clearing him before the center of turn 1, with Logano following close behind the next lap. And while trying to drive away from the short run equipped Logano, Truex tested his speed on the outside for the first time all night, to everyone's surprise.
18, oh, he didn't go to the bottom.
Yeah, Truex on the top. Why did Truex go to the top?
That was weird. He's not running there all night long, and you see what it's allowed to do. The 22 car's closed dramatically.
That was crazy. I don't know why he did that.
This allowed the 22 to continue to cut into the lead, and with the top wide open now after Truex had failed at running it, Logano used it to his advantage to pull right to his bumper as they hit 12 to go, before sending it off into turn 1 for a championship.
Looking to the left.
All the way to the back bumper of the 78, now to the outside. Here comes Logano, trying to take the lead away.
Wow,
he drives past the 78. He'll take the lead as they go down the backstretch.
He buried that car down into turn 1.
How did that car stick? That's incredible.
I'd have to imagine at this point, it was evident to Martin Truex Jr. he had lost the battle and the war, as without a caution to reset things, Joey Logano drove away to his first Cup Series championship.
Well, he has risen well above the pressure as he comes out of turn number 4 to claim his first ever Cup Series championship. It's Joey Logano who wins.
And that was it for NASCAR's Big 3. Together they dominated the headlines, controlled the stat sheets, and put on one of the most impressive displays of consistency NASCAR has ever seen throughout an entire season, winning over half the races that season between them and leading thousands of laps, all while being the class of the field week in and week out for 9 months straight at every type of track. Yet none of them walked away with the most important thing. The 2018 season showed that in NASCAR, doing everything right still doesn't guarantee you a championship. You can dominate for 35 weeks, you can lead every stat, and you can look straight up unbeatable for every race. But in just one race, the championship can slip away. For the Big 3, 2018 was a cold and painful reminder that these days in NASCAR, sometimes greatness isn't enough to win it all. Sometimes the story doesn't end the way we think it all should. And sometimes, the champion isn't the driver who was the best all season, but rather the one who won the war in the very end.